Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, Wilderness Runner, and welcome to Montana. So tonight I would like to review, between now and tonight, I'd like to review this sleeping bag, which in full disclosure, I have not tried yet. I'm not paid by any company. I would love to be, but I'm not paid by any company to review products or anything like that. This is just a 0-degree sleeping bag that I saw in a Dunham's, I believe, sports or Dunham's store in the Muskegon, Michigan area, as I was kind of entertaining the idea of buying a down sleeping bag, which I've had in the past and I loved it. So it set the bar really, really high, and I didn't even want to think about buying something that wasn't down. However, I'm here in this store, I want a sleeping bag. I decided to see what they have, and I don't see anything in down, but I see up on the top shelf, I can't see the price, but I see this Klymit Aspen 0-degree sleeping bag, and I say, what the heck, it's what they have here. I'm gonna ask the price, I'm gonna buy it. I kind of decided that I was gonna buy it regardless of what the price was, and then the price turns out to be $99.99 marked down to $49.97. And now let's get to the elephant in the room. It's what you're thinking, it's what I was thinking. Can a sleeping bag at this price, even the full price, $100 for a sleeping bag that's supposedly rated to 0 degrees, can it actually be any good? I was slightly comforted when I read some reviews online. I didn't really get any definitive answers, anyone actually using it to its rated capacity and giving kind of a clear description of what that was like. And that's kind of going to be my goal. I'm going to use this tonight. It's supposed to be clear skies up in Kalispell, Montana, which is my destination. Clear skies and down to about 19 degrees. So it's not going to be a real test. Well, I'm going to sleep under the stars with this sleeping bag, no tent, so we get a real picture of it. And I like that it says here, their catchphrase or whatever is sleep outside. So they get right down to business. Here's our sleeping bag, here's our product, sleep outside. And this is going to be a little bit of a test for me as well as the sleeping bag. I'm going to try not to get too esoterical here or spend too long on it. But, you know, it's challenging to make the decision to just go ahead and sleep outside when you know it's going to be in the teens and cold. And not only that, but it's getting dark early this time of year. It's just a few days after the winter solstice. This is January 30th, 2025. And the fear really is boredom, right? We're so used to being inside where there's this nice, big, spacious, heated area that you can move around and do whatever you want in. And you're like, I'm gonna go not only sleep outside, sleeping's the easy part. You know, if it's actually warm, you're all good. Not just sleep outside, but be in the situation where I'm getting prepared to sleep outside in advance, meaning that it's cold, it's dark, there's nothing to do, and I have to be alone with myself. And so that's kind of the personal challenge of this, and that's what I actually like about this this catchphrase, sleep outside. Because in my personal experience, despite it being an intimidating thing to do when you think about it in advance, it can be a really healing experience, right? Sleeping under the stars, being vulnerable, you know, being exposed to this the incredibly grandiose world that we live in, and that just massive template of dark and stars above us that's there all the time, but we choose to kind of spend our time inside of this little heated space instead and think that that's somehow bigger. So I won't go any more into that. Let's keep the rest of this about the sleeping bag, about how well it enables me to actually sleep outside and stay at least safe, maybe comfortable. This says, so what I was gonna say earlier, I was kind of comforted when I read reviews and I saw that people complained about the weight. Okay, I know there's got to be something less than ideal about this sleeping bag, or it wouldn't be $100, right? It would be like $200 or $300 or $400 if everything was just incredible about it. So if there's going to be something that's less than incredible about this sleeping bag, I'd like that thing to be its weight and not its warmth. So the fact that most of the complaints I heard were about its weight made me feel open to the possibility that maybe this thing is actually warm, and the main thing that we're sacrificing to get this price is its weight, not its warmth. So that remains to be seen, but I'm hopeful there. I didn't really see anyone complaining about its warmth, but very few people actually, used it to sleep in extreme temperatures. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have some blankets ready to go just to the side. So if I do get too cold, I'll be able to pull over some blankets and be all right. But I'm also gonna use a very simple, foldable, thin, like 1/2 inch thick camping mat. And that's more for comfort than for the added warmth, but it will provide some added warmth and hopefully, just some protection between this and the ground, or this and the bed of the truck. I'm undecided which I'll do, but you'll find out shortly. So for right now, I'm not gonna say a whole lot about this. Yeah, it's not really a backpacking sleeping bag by modern standards, but people used to backpack with, really heavy packs. And to their standards, this might be great, but ours now, it's noticeably heavier and bulkier than my down sleeping bag that was also rated to 0. And that sleeping bag was amazing. I slept in it in temperatures around 0 and in temperatures warmer than 0, and regardless of the temperature, it was so comfortable. It was perfect. It was like the most cozy, comfortable, soft, plush sleep I've ever gotten anywhere. So this is gonna have a really hard time living up to that, but I'm gonna try to judge it for what it is and not for what it isn't. So my biggest questions are, does it keep me warm? And beyond that, is it somewhat comfortable? Is there anything about the sleeping bag itself, like it's I don't know, it has a bunch of folds and things that make it specifically uncomfortable? Is it actually soft and fluffy like a down sleeping bag once I open it up, and actually contributes to the comfort? Does it detract from comfort? Is it neutral? But obviously the biggest question here is it warm? So thanks for watching the channel, and the next clip will probably be me setting up the sleeping bag, and then one in the morning to give you my opinion of what it was like. I will catch you later, and actually see you in just a few here in this video. Well, I hope that the sleeping bag is serious, because this thing is definitely a joke. All right, since I'm doing this, I guess I'll do first impressions here. My first impression was I started trying to open the sleeping bag, and I immediately had to deal with this. I'm not sure why it's tied up, and now that I'm looking at it, I think it's a pretty simple thing to undo. So no biggie really, but I don't know why they went through the extra effort of tying that up when you're just going to untie it, obviously the first time you use it. And no, I'm probably going to have to set the phone down, because I won't be able to pull this out. It's pretty securely in there. One of the things I've read about these is that they're impossible to get back into the bag, and I would definitely believe that based on how really snug this is. Like beyond snug it is in the bag. It's jammed in there, which also kind of contributes to making it feel like the sleeping bag is lumpy. just because of how compressed it is against the bag. But I'm hoping that once I pull it out, it opens up and it fluffs up and is nice. All right, so I got it laid out, and you can see how much of a joke this little fold out thing is, because it's like not even the full length of a sleeping bag. It's probably shorter on both ends, but this isn't a review of that. It's a review of the bag. So I did lay out a blanket underneath it. But that's kind of all I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna put a pillow down as well, and then we'll see how it is. All right, so I'm just about to get out and see if I can settle in for the night. And a few just clarifiers and disclaimers, so you kind of know what your basis is for your opinion of the sleeping bag based on my review. I am going to try to sleep wearing a t-shirt, regular, like flannel style pajama pants, no socks. Who sleeps with their socks? And I am not feeling very cold resistant tonight. I'm not feeling very resilient in general. I've been on the road for a few days. I've been staying at hotels for ever since I left home. And I think that I've just gotten pretty soft, I guess, because of that. And normally when I'm on the road, I sleep in my vehicle, and I kind of want to get away from that because that just feels like being a bum. And if you sleep in a sleeping bag under the stars, that's camping. If you stay at a hotel, that's a business trip. Either one is kind of better. It's more intentional, and that's kind of the point here. So it was a little bit of a struggle getting changed, obviously, in the vehicle. This is meant to be a review of the sleeping bag, but it's also kind of a review of the whole experience. But you probably know that if you do any sort of camping at all. I do have two backup plans tonight. The first is to just clear the back seat off again of the truck itself and sleep in the truck. I do know for a fact that it will stay warmer inside the vehicle than outside the vehicle if I'm in the vehicle and my body heat is contributing. Obviously, I've slept in a vehicle many times, in all sorts of temperatures, including down to 0 and below 0. Never been an issue. Lowest temperature I've slept in a vehicle was like -26, not wind chill, just actually -26. That was on a trip to Alaska, but ironically it was in the lower 48. It was just a really extremely cold snap that happened as I set off on a trip to Alaska, and Alaska was not that cold when I got there. But anyway, let's see how this experience goes. let me do this review while it's still fresh in my mind somewhat. Obviously the day is going, it's sunny, it's pretty warm out now. Actually, it feels fairly warm out, maybe 40 degrees, I'm not sure. But I was walking around in my sweatshirt fairly comfortably for a few minutes. Okay, so let's get to the point first. It was cold. I could give you some more details beyond that, but let's just start off with, I did not need to add a blanket, but it was right on the verge of that point, and it was more just I don't feel like getting up than I don't want to add a blanket. So there's that. I feel like I don't like how much the sun is directly on me, so let me move a little bit here. All right, what else? Before I forget to say it, because this is a little detail that's easy to forget, I did not love how slick the outer material was. The effect that had was that it was a little bit harder to get adjusted. What I mean by that is, well, I was on this relatively thin pad, and then on top of that I had one blanket, which I feel like were absolutely essential components of this camping setup, and like the very basic, most minimum things you could add if you're going to add anything. And then I had a pillow, and one issue I had, which is probably just more inevitable, not necessarily because of any quality of the sleeping bag, but one issue I had was that it felt like my head had to go too far down to reach the pillow. And I realized that maybe that's kind of a problem that you don't have when you're sleeping inside, because that mattress is nice and soft and has some give, and so you compress into it and your head gets closer to the pillow to begin with. And I'm sleeping on the hard ground with a very thin mat, and so I'm completely elevated, and then I'm trying to reach the pillow with my head, and so just in general that was an issue, and it felt like I wanted to kind of, move around, adjust the sleeping bag into a specific position to try to get the most comfortable position, use my hands to augment the pillow and everything else. And it was just hard to get it to stay in one spot because it was so slick. Now, I feel like a side-by-side comparison with other competitive sleeping bags would be important to give this context, but that was what I experienced. That was one of the things I experienced. Outside of that, I feel like one of the critiques here that I thought over, I was like, well, it's cold because I'm sleeping like on the snow, right? It's not just the air temperature, it's that I'm sleeping on the snow. But this sleeping bag says that it's good for 0 degrees, and the catchphrase is sleep outside. So if you think about it, if you're sleeping outside and it's 0 degrees out, what are you going to be sleeping on? You're either going to be sleeping on snow or ice, or at the very least cold ground that is frozen and exactly as cold as snow or ice would be. So that's kind of inevitable, and I don't think you can say like, well, obviously it's meant for a 0 degree air temperature, not the literal snow that you're almost directly on. It's like, it does seem like a lot to ask for any sleeping bag, like, for any material that's only this thick and then you're sleeping on it, so you're compressing it. How is that going to keep you warm? It seems like magic, and it feels like when you put an ice pack on your arm, but you put a piece of cloth between it, it's still gonna feel cold. But if that's the claim, then somehow this sleeping bag has to be magic. And that's what I remember experiencing with a down sleeping bag. I was like, how can this thing possibly keep me warm? As fluffy and pillowy as it is, once I open it up, which was kind of first magical component of a down sleeping bag is you pull it out and it immediately just fluffs up into this huge, puffy, pillowy thing. And it like packs into this tiny space. That's the magic of a down sleeping bag. And I want to try to keep it focused on this, but I kind of have to share that by comparison. This wasn't magic. This was kind of what I expected. And that's what made the down sleeping bag magic, is that it was not what I expected. It was like, it blew my mind. And this one, it was like, okay, this is kind of what I thought it would be. You know, I open it up, I pull it out of the bag. It gets kind of, you know, it's nice. It has a nice shape. It has a nice form. It fluffs up a little bit. It looks a little bit puffy and comfortable. I meant to do this before I started making this part of the video, but I'll look it up. I'll put it on the screen how cold it was last night. It was not 0 degrees. I stayed in Lincoln, near Lincoln, Montana, and it was, I would guess, about 20 degrees overnight. And I got in anticipating that I was going to take off my sweatshirt, the same one I'm wearing right now. And when I got into the sleeping bag, it became clear fairly quickly that I was not going to take off my sweatshirt. And I will say that my upper body, at least the portion of it that wasn't pressed against the ground, did get a little bit warm a couple of times, like almost uncomfortably warm. So there's that needs to be said. But at the same time, the side of me that was pressed against the ground was a little bit cold, and my feet were cold. And that's why I almost never wear a sweatshirt to sleep. You know, it's like, it doesn't bother me that much to wear a sweatshirt while sleeping. And you almost kind of expect to sometimes. If you're sleeping outside, you know it's going to be cold. But the issue with that is that if you need a sweatshirt to keep your upper body warm, your feet that do not have a sweatshirt or socks, because you're not a psycho, I'm kidding, but I cannot stand to wear socks to bed. I guess I would do it, especially if they're like comfortable wool socks, if I really needed to, and I'd probably sleep just fine. But I really don't enjoy that sensation of going to bed wearing socks. So if you're determined to have bare feet, then the overall warmth provided by your sleeping bag or your blankets or whatever you're using needs to be warm enough to keep your bare feet warm, which means it's definitely warm enough to keep the core of your body and your arms warm without a sweatshirt. So if you are feeling like you're going to need a sweatshirt, your feet are going to be cold. And that's exactly what I experienced. My feet were uncomfortably cold most of the night. And my legs and extremities were a little bit cold, but my feet were freezing. Not quite freezing, but they were really cold. And then once I got up in the morning and got in the truck and started driving, my feet really felt freezing then. They felt numb and cold for a while. And part of that's that my circulation isn't, as good as it used to be. And I'm not exercising enough, and I've had COVID, which I don't know if whether or not that has had a lasting impact on my circulation, but it certainly did initially, but that was a couple of years ago. I think that part of the issue that could, be improved is my own circulation. But I could also tell, from the moment kind of that I got into the sleeping bag, okay, this is going to be adequate, but it's not going to be warm. And then I was a little bit impressed that the core of my body and the parts that I was wearing a sweatshirt on did get a little bit warm, like almost a little bit too warm, but it was this weird contrast between being a little bit too cold in places and a little bit too warm in places. And to really regulate that, you need a sleeping bag where you can be wearing a t-shirt, shorts, and be comfortable in it. And I have experienced that with a down sleeping bag at colder temperatures than this. Now, let's talk about value. This thing was $50. Blankets can sometimes be free. You can find blankets for free or pretty cheap fairly often. Whether or not this is a good value to you depends on what you need and what you want. If you want a bag that's going to be $50, if you're lucky enough to find it half off, which it is at Dunham's in Muskegon, Michigan right now. There were more of them. I did not buy the last one. There's probably other places where you can get that deal. Or even $100 brand new, and you're looking for something that's going to definitely keep you alive, sleeping directly on the ground, under the stars, no tent, at 20 degrees. This will do that. And maybe you find it, maybe you do want to go backpacking or hike in somewhere with it. You don't want to carry a bunch of blankets. It may be a good value for you. Personally, I'm pretty much either car camping or even sleeping on the ground outside. I think I have enough blankets that I could have been warmer using blankets. Don't underestimate blankets. Blankets really work well, especially when you layer them and when you place some underneath you in addition to on top of you. I think I have enough blankets I could have stayed warmer. But that would have been convenient for me because I'm sleeping right next to my vehicle. If you want to hike in somewhere, you're probably getting more bang for your buck, or I should say you're getting more warmth for the weight by carrying this 3.6 pound sleeping bag than by carrying a bunch of blankets. And also you're probably getting more warmth for the amount of space that the item takes up. For me, it probably wasn't really a good buy, to be honest, for what I need and what I'm going to use it for. And I'm proud, this is not a sleeping bag that I'm probably going to hike in somewhere with. But if it was my only option and I wanted to hike in somewhere, I suppose that I would use it. One last thing, and this goes back into kind of the more philosophical aspect of this. It got me to sleep outside. I did not enjoy my whole night's sleep. I woke up several times throughout the night, kind of tried to adjust, get comfortable. One last thing I'll say about that, because I mentioned it earlier in the lead up to all of this, the sleeping bag itself neither really contributed nor detracted from my comfort level. It was not like a joyous, wonderful experience to be inside the sleeping bag as it was when I had a down sleeping bag. It also wasn't terrible or like extremely uncomfortable by any means. It was neutral. The actual comfort of the sleeping bag itself was neutral. And I'm really only having things to say about the warmth because comfort it didn't contribute one way or the other. But sleeping on the ground is itself somewhat uncomfortable. And the sleeping bag didn't really mitigate that or improve it. So I had a fairly uncomfortable night's sleep, and it was probably a little bit less about being slightly too cold and more about just the discomfort of sleeping on the ground itself. So I didn't sleep super well. I kept waking up because I was uncomfortable, because I was on the hard ground and the pillow wasn't the right height, and at some point in the night I folded the pillow in half to raise it, and then that was a little bit better. And then also you reach that point in the night where your body's determined to sleep no matter what. By like 2-3 a.m. it's like I'm out. So I didn't have the most comfortable night's sleep. I didn't have the most restful night's sleep, I think. The selling point of sleeping outside often is being under the stars. That's the thing that I was really looking forward to and expecting to get the most out of. So a few times that I woke up, I made a point of looking at the stars and being like, yeah, I'm out here, I'm in this is awesome. I appreciate this. But it felt a little bit forced. The stars, I've seen better stars. They're the same stars all the time, obviously, but I've had more powerful experiences under the stars. So this one was more just kind of reminding myself to appreciate what I'm experiencing and the good of it. But what really got me was after I woke up, heard the dogs barking, saw lights, saw that someone was driving through in their car, and I decided at that point to get up because I don't feel like getting up because it's cold. I'm a little bit cold right now. It's gonna be even colder once I get out of the sleeping bag, start getting my boots on, but I'm not gonna get any more rest. So I got up, got going, and then I'm driving, and then there's this incredible sunrise, like one of the most spectacular, amazing sunrises, which the camera definitely did not capture. And I was just so blown away by it. And I was like, okay, this is the thing that I would not have experienced if I'd stayed at a hotel. I would have slept right through this, with the shades drawn, thinking it's still dark, and it would have been a nice, wonderful, cozy sleep. But I would have missed this. And, this is part of life. Like, this is maybe more of an integral, essential part of life than necessarily having the most comfortable sleep in the world every night. I think both are important, and I'm really going to appreciate the next time I do stay at a hotel and it's just super soft, fluffy, warm sleep. But sometimes you need these experiences to let you know that you're alive and that the world is amazing and incredible. And, this happens every single morning. It's not always like this in every single place, but somewhere every morning there's a sunrise like this, but not quite like this because everyone's unique and different. And it's just incredible. And that's the part of life that we also need. And so as far as getting me to experience that part of life, and, here I am, I'm fine. You go through these things, and I think it's important sometimes to let yourself know that you can do things. You don't need, a hotel. That kind of sleep is a luxury, and it's a luxury you appreciate more if you don't have it every single night. And you need to know that you can survive without it, and you'll be okay. So those are kind of the intangibles that make it hard to really assign a value. I could say it wasn't worth this purchase, really, monetary, financially, but $50 is less than the cost of staying in one hotel one night. So just by using it once, I broke even. And besides that, I got a different type of experience. And I think all in all, I can say that was a good thing for me. I think it was a net positive. So hope this review was helpful. I think I answered the really obvious question. Is it super warm? No, it's not. Plan on using a sleeping bag liner or blankets or whatever if you're going to use this thing at like 20 degrees or below that. Maybe use a tent even. So be prepared to be realistic about what it is that you're getting. Decide if that's what you want or if you want to hold out. I think that the gently used down sleeping bag that I bought for $100, and I would have believed you if you had told me it was never used, never opened, just purchased, taken off the shelf, not once slept in. I think that was a better value. I'm gonna be really honest, I think that was a better value than this. But, you know, like I said, it's not always about, there's more factors than just the money. And the way that this was a good value is that I was able to walk into a store that I was already nearby and buy it, take it off the shelf, purchase it same day, and could have used it same day. And even though the $100 lightly used down sleeping bag was a better financial value, there's more factors in that. There's not always one around. You know, I checked Facebook Marketplace. Back when I bought that, it was a few years ago, and it was in Colorado. It was in like Denver, Boulder, Colorado. So, you know, easy place to find that type of gear. In Michigan, not an easy place to find it. So this provided the value of being available on a shelf at Dunham's. So I'll stop now. Don't need to go on and on about these things. You can decide, but I do appreciate the fact that this sleeping bag got me to do exactly what it said on the cover and sleep outside. Thanks for watching. Come back to Wilderness Runner anytime. Like and subscribe if you want to. I'd like to get more content like this and other things. I'd just like to get more content on the channel in general. So if you support that, show me some support. I appreciate it. Talk to you later.